Namo Om Krishna Stay Bhutale Himati Vedanta Swami Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavadi Pashtatmari Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Yadvaita Gadadha Shiva Sai Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, welcome everyone. Everyone's got their camera off except Madhu Mongol. That's okay, I guess you got your reasons. Oh, there's my Chandravali, just appeared. Hare Krishna. So, without further ado, we're on page 437. Okay, page 437. And title of the chapter, but just the last two pages of the chapter, chapter 23, and it's called Loss of Sankalpa. And we've been looking at different impediments that might be there in our progressive Krishna consciousness. It's a very interesting reading and discussion. First one Maharaj brought up was misconduct.
There is an echo. There is an echo there because I think somebody has the microphone on.
An echo coming from me.
Prabhu, there is no echo. You complained last time and nobody else had an echo except you. Maybe it's your microphone.
Yeah.
Now it's good. Now it's good.
So Maharaj described and was reading about misconduct. So in other words, making offenses to Vaishnavas. We looked at that. Also, with another impediment could well be bad association. We have to associate with non-devotees. That's life. This is the world we live in. Most are non-devotees. But how to protect ourselves and what constitutes bad association, as well, taking on their values of materialistic people. Another one we discussed was lack of discrimination. We've taken up the path of bhakti, so we have to be discriminating even in who we associate with. We have to be some discrimination has to be there. Of course, we associate with devotees, but let's try and associate with devotees who are not fault finders, who are not, who are progressive in spiritual life. We want to associate with those devotees who can encourage us. Another one was doubtfulness, having doubts. Oh, I cannot attain, or can I attain the goal? We described that. We was looking at that. I guess we could read the whole thing again to be clear on it again, but let's move on. And now we're looking at 40 sadhana, and specifically we're looking at pride. The last just a couple of pages dedicated to this. Okay, so let's begin 437, beginning just under the 4 asterisks. If anyone would like to read, you're quite welcome to. Madhu Mongol has his hand up.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, question.
Okay, yes, please. Can I just quickly ask a question?
Yes.
When you're doing services in the Pujari, and then you have a lot of negativity coming, like from devotees. Oh, this is not right. That's not right. This is that. How does one deal with it? Because in a place like that, which is used 24 hours a day, and so many devotees coming, going, so many things happening, you cannot control everything. So how does one mentally deal with it?
Well, I guess an easy answer is to chant good rounds. But over and above that, is that I wouldn't take it so, that's kind of innocent. That's kind of, I wouldn't take it so seriously. You know, in the Bajai department, there's so many different facets, so many different details, so many things that should be in place. It's just like every inch of our Bajai department has got a specific place for something, and things can get misplaced, things can get forgotten. Because as you mentioned, there's so many devotees come in and come out. So it's so it's only to be expected, you know, that devotees going to notice things and point things out. I mean, that's kind of, I think that's to be accepted, you know, kind of to be accepted. I mean, there is I guess there's a balance where if that becomes the constant theme of one particular person or one, then it can perhaps might have to be addressed. There might be something else going on there. So no doubt we'll do Pujari service, and sometimes we may see things miss, and it was good to bring it up because we're all trying to serve the Lord, and we want to serve the Lord nicely. So if we notice things that are not right, and others may not have seen it, so we can bring it out and we can bring it up. And there's no harm to that. I don't think there's no harm for that. But again, if someone is habitually in that, habitually in becoming what's the word? Becoming resentful, then that's something else. That might be have to look at. Perhaps that's something else might be going on. Perhaps something more deeper. One may be generally dissatisfied with their spiritual life in general, at least on that particular day. You know. So sometimes it's like that. We're like all together as a family in one sense. So sometimes one of the family members are a bit down. So sometimes they're going to be complaining more than they normally do. So what can you do? You know, if they're like that every day, then that's probably an issue for the management to deal with. You know, have to try and someone to speak to them and see if there's something there. You know, I don't know if that answered your question.
I was more thinking, what does the person who gets all these things, negativity, deal with themselves? How would they bypass it, try and,
well, there's this saying that if you want to please everyone all the time, don't be a manager, you should sell ice cream.
Okay.
Understand? If you want everyone to be happy with you all the time, you should sell ice cream. Don't be a manager. All right. So that comes with being a manager. I mean, that's what you agree to let yourself into when you become a head of a department or take on something. You're agreeing to that. You have to get that's part of the so that's part of it, you know. But we can, I mean, I find personally, I guess we won't spend too long in this 10 up until Pujari.
No.
But
No. It's not kind of Pujari question.
Oh,
it's
just in
more
general.
more for understanding how to deal in any situation. It doesn't have to be in a Pujari, in any situation outside even. How to deal with negativity and change it to positive thinking.
Well, I guess we could bring up lots of details, but there's nothing like old-fashioned Krishna consciousness. Being conscious of Krishna, you know, really taking shelter of Krishna and the sadhana and chanting the holy name, it automatically puts one in a positive frame of mind. So even if negative things come, then your tendency is to frame it in positivity because you're feeling very positive. You know, doesn't mean we're blind to things that are going wrong, but there's nothing like old-fashioned Krishna consciousness, to one's consciousness to be in a right place under Krishna's lotus feet. And if we don't have that, then we have to go down the other line of right mindsets in facing negativity and as a whole, you know. But let's just try and be Krishna conscious.
Right.
I don't know if I'm making sense. A few things there. All right, let's begin
Okay.
then. Mother Mongol, you could begin then on 437.
I do not have the book,
Oh,
unfortunately.
all right, so no good putting your hand up for reading then.
No, but there is not on the. You don't have the script. Okay.
No, I don't, I'm afraid. It's not out yet on the soft copy. Probably will
Okay.
be
I will put the hand down. That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's have Anupama, Mother. Anupama. You can read, your hand is there. She only takes a few seconds to come in once we call her name.
Sorry, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Baba. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself.
Okay.
Prabhu, is it from the top of page 437?
It's under the 4 asterisks.
Okay, okay. Another fault, yeah, from there.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Another fault of sadhana occurs when a devotee, undoubtedly an immature one, becomes proud of his spiritual attainment. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that the key to progressive devotion is humility. He writes, one who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give all respect to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. Since pride is the antithesis of humility, as one would expect, it produces regressive devotion, which the examples below illustrate. A neophyte sometimes foolishly thinks that because he has learned some mantras and taken diksha, he has mastered all that is to be known, and then a somewhat more advanced sadhaka may become proud of his immature realizations, mistakenly thinking that he has reached the goal, while actually he is reveling in mental speculation.
Reveling, yeah.
Reveling in mental speculation. When the illusions of both the neophyte and the slightly more advanced devotees are equally detrimental to sadhana, even more so is a pride that causes a devotee to offend Vaishnavas. The common characteristics of these 3 devotees, their pride in spiritual attainment, is known as Utsaha Maya.
Mai. Utsaha Mai.
Utsai Mai.
Mm.
Thank you. Another defect is sometimes seen in a more advanced Vaishnava. Although he is free of pride, his defect is that he has not yet developed utter humility, danya. This indispensable ingredient of prema can only be attained by those who have developed feelings of separation from Krishna. And there are different reasons why a devotee has not learned to cultivate vipralamba seva. One reason for the absence of danya can be attributed to a devotee feeling contentment, meaning the freedom from suffering that accompanies the modes of goodness. Krishna describes this defect in the following words. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. Another reason a devotee may not have developed danya is insufficient spiritual guidance. This relates to the early defect, wherein the spiritual master's instructions are below or above the eligibility of the follower. Like all stages of devotional service, transcendence requires direction from a qualified spiritual master. If a spiritual master is not sufficiently advanced or not sufficiently realized, he may be unable to guide a qualified disciple in matters of separation. Srila Prabhupada describes the limitation of different grades of gurus in this way. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami advises the devotee to be intelligent enough to distinguish between the Kanishtadhikari, Madhyamadhikari, and Uttamadhikari. The devotee should also know his own position and should not try to imitate a devotee situated on a higher platform. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given some practical hints to the effect that an Uttam Adhikari Vaishnava can be recognized by his ability to convert many fallen souls to Vaishnavism. One should not become a spiritual master unless he has attained the platform of Uttam Adhikari, a neophyte Vaishnav or Vaishnav situated on the intermediate platform can also accept disciples, but such disciples must be on the same platform, and it should be understood that they cannot advance very well towards the ultimate goal of life under his insufficient guidance. Therefore, a disciple should be careful to accept an Uttamadhikari as a spiritual master. The final fault in sadhana to be mentioned here are the distractions that come from bhakti. One such distraction is the material opulence that follows devotees, especially preachers, specifically leaders, sannyasis, and gurus. Unless devotees are careful to engage wealth and followers in Krishna's service, they may develop a sense of entitlement, which what is that? Redirects? What is that?
Redirects. Yeah, that's correct.
The aspiration from prema to that of material enjoyment. Another kind of distraction is when devotees develop excessive attachment to other forms of the Lord, like Nrsimha or Rama, forms that are meant to facilitate attraction to Krishna, but not to be the ultimate goal of attraction. This phenomenon has been described previously from a different perspective under the title of divergent association. In short, these distractions weaken determination to attain loving devotion to Krishna. In this chapter, we have described 5 factors that result in a decrease in or complete loss of determination. They were misconduct, bad association, lack of discrimination, doubtfulness, and faulty sadhana. While there are other factors that have the same unfortunate result, we have selected those that are given the most emphasis by acharyas, primarily Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavat. In summary, the lesson to be learned is that only appropriate devotional practice can protect a Vaishnava's determination from being sapped away by the material energy. For this reason, it is said, sadhu savadhana. Sadhu, be careful.
Yeah, sadhu, be careful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any immediate questions on this? Or points? I thought I'd just let it go to finish this chapter. The next chapter is going to be a summary chapter. So, for good or for worse, one of the, for good or for bad, actually for both, Krishna consciousness. When did Prabhupada establish the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, our ISKCON movement? 1960.
66 was it?
66.
66.
65.
Yeah, no, 66, and I should remember that because that was the year I was born, and I remember reading that in Lilamrita. I was born when ISKCON was officially established by Prabhupada in New York. So how many years is that? Any mathematicians out there?
56.
That's 33 years, isn't it? No, it's more than that.
56.
56 years.
My mom is born in 62 and she's 52, I think.
Right. So I guess I've just given my age away. Anyway.
You just
Thank you,
told
well
us
known.
how old you are.
Yeah.
I thought you are 40 or something, Murli Prabhu, not more than 42.
My soul's eternal. Anyway, so one thing that we've seen over the years of Krishna consciousness has a history. I would say the history is positive, but we see what's been mentioned here. We have to say that in our history of ISKCON, we've seen devotees who have deviated from the path for one or more of these reasons. Yeah. Specifically here, Maharaj is quoting from, again, which he often does in this section, from the Madhuri Kadambini. So Utsaha Mayi, for example, that's when one has attained some level of nishta, one has become somewhat steady. Then Utsaha Mayi described one starts delighting in what comes from that, in adoration, for example, material facility, etc., etc. And then as Maharaj says, instead of the goal becoming Krishna prema, would you mention that sentence? It becomes material acquisition. So these are all pitfalls in a spiritual life. I give an example which you heard one Maharaj giving Mayapur. Forget his name. Might come to me in a minute. He's a South American Maharaj, very wonderful devotee. Anyway, he was speaking about, he was explaining a classic scenario. Say someone joins Mayapur and they come from a very simple village, you know, so they join the Mayapur temple, you know. Then after some time they become steady. Then after that, some time they show some ability in management. Yeah. Then they become manager of a guest house, you know, and then they may, what's been seen sometimes, then they may get, you know, they may get a position in the accountings to do the accounts, and they've probably never seen 100 rupee note in their life, you know, and all of a sudden they're counting thousands and thousands of rupees. And as they're counting thousands of rupees, they're thinking of their poor mother, their village, this and that. So they start, you know, they start to, start to steal the money. You know, he given that example, or they become just a manager of a guest house and then become, not, I guess this is hopefully rare examples, but then become full of pride. So anyway, so we need to cultivate humility is something that has to be cultivated. In other words, we have to meditate upon it, and we have to look out for opportunities for us to actually act in a humble way. Yeah. We have to it's something we have to meditate upon. Someone who has Krishna prema, then it's, when someone is Krishna conscious, then it's automatically there. That's actually a symptom of someone who's actually Krishna conscious. They will actually be very humble. That's mentioned in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, that from Krishna prema comes humility. But at the same time, humility also gives rise to a Krishna prema. So we have to we have to water the pump, you know. Okay, we may not be at the highest levels of bhakti where these qualities are naturally manifest. So therefore we have to be consciously conscious and be trying to adopt the principle of humility. Yeah, so we have to as we go about our service, as we interact with devotees, you know, how much humility are we actually expressing, or how much pride? So that's something for everyone to so this is called sadhana bhakti. These are things we have to work on in a developing quality such as pridelessness. And it's not so easy because we come from a background where we're quite habituated to thinking we are more than what we actually are. So spiritual life, it's the opposite. We should think less of ourselves, not more of ourselves. Not less to ourselves to the extent that we feel ourselves so-called unqualified to do anything. No, that's called a mode of ignorance. But anyway, so Mars mentioned this is an impediment, so we have to look out for it. Any questions or comments on this?
Well, Prabhu, I wanted to ask something.
Yes.
There it says in one point that the devotee should look for a Uttamadhikari guru. What happens if the disciple is more how you say, develop then the guru.
Yeah.
It says in one point there, we should be very careful how we.
Well, generally that is not going to be a case. That generally is not going to be the case, because generally the spiritual master is going to be a lot further down the line, at least in this life, than his perspective or his disciples. Sometimes that may be the case, and if that is the case, then the spiritual master, being endowed with great humility, will be very happy to see his disciples' advancement in Krishna consciousness, and very happy to actually get his association. Sometimes there are examples of that in our Gaudiya Vaishnava history. There's stories as well. I can't think of the names now exactly, where it becomes apparent that the disciple is more advanced than the guru. That was seen in Ramanujacharya, when he was given the mantra and he went, he was told to keep it to himself. They couldn't resist it. And he called all the village, he called the whole village to come, and he gave out the mantra. And his spiritual master was, as you expected, he told him to not, it was a goal, it should be kept secret. He was very disturbed. But then Ramanuja expressed his compassion and the reason why, and his compassion for everyone. So at that point he realized, yes, my disciple is more advanced than what I am. So generally that's not going to be the case. If there is a situation where that is the case, then the spiritual master, because he's not envious, he'd be very happy to get the association of such a disciple. And together they will relish Krishna consciousness. Yeah, but
I also heard somewhere, I don't know whether I heard it. Yeah, I'm sure I heard it, that in that kind of situation, the spiritual master will get his disciple to take association of another advanced guru or something like that.
no,
Point him towards that.
yeah, no, that's the particular, that will come into.
Did I hear that somewhere?
Yeah, no, that's correct. But that's in regards, so say the disciple is becoming advanced to the stages of bhava, and are now beginning to seriously contemplate their eternal relationship with Krishna. So they need guidance in that meditation and in their bhajan. So if the spiritual master sees himself unqualified to give that level of instruction, then he will direct the disciple to a more, you could say, rasika, to a more advanced person who can actually guide him in his bhajan. Yeah, and then
I think that was,
and then the mood is that disciple will happily take those instructions, and he will take those instructions, or what he learns, he will share with his spiritual master. So it's a very sweet relationship. Again, the Vaishnava, that's why Vaishnavas have to be, they are, if we take the definition of Vaishnava, they are free of envy. So if they see their spiritual master, or they see if the disciple becomes very advanced to the point of needing guidance in higher aspects of rasa, then because there's no envy, he'd be very happy for him and direct him to someone who can guide him. Yeah. So it may be different. It may see, it also may be that it's another subject. It may be that the directions in development of one's relationship with Krishna may come directly from the holy name itself. And generally that's the way it will happen. Yeah, it will come directly from the holy name, will be the one to direct one. And then again, there will be there should be discussion with qualified devotees. So I don't know if that answered the question.
I think that was more correct how Chandravali Mataji was saying. She formulated the question. That's what I was referring.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
So Maharaj points out, actually, in studying Maharaj's books, he points out that the devotee will never be bereft of guidance. If it happens that once there is not someone available, you don't have specific relationship, you may not be in a part of the world where there is someone who can actually guide you in these details of advanced Krishna consciousness, then the holy name will be your guide. I'm just studying a book at the moment, a small book by my spiritual master. And he mentions this point that he gives, remember that time we read that wonderful writing by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he speaks about the potency of the holy name, how it's guiding him, how it's imprisoned him in ecstasy, and it's revealing the path.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, very
When
wonderful. So we will never be bereft when the time comes that that type of guidance will actually come from the holy name. Generally, that's the way it will happen, because generally that may be more the way it will happen. The guidance will, but that should all be then confirmed and verified by the spiritual master. Yeah, there's one, I won't get into all the details, but there is one well-known case in Hungary, one Mataji called Radha Kund, where she had quite a profound realization of Krishna. And my Guru Maharaj instructed her in the further development of that relationship to chant the holy name, and she will get further insight into her spiritual attainment from the holy name. And my Guru Maharaj will be encouraging her. Radha Kund, very well famous case in Hungary. She's written a diary, which is in Hungarian, so it's not accessible.
We could translate it maybe. If we get hold on it, I will put my mom to translate it.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answered the question. So
is that the holy name? Is that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sharanagati bhajan?
I can't recall exactly where it is now. Perhaps it is. Yeah.
How the holy name goes to your heart and how it's okay.
Yeah.
I think I know.
Yeah. All right. So a little bit, anyway. Yeah, that's a nice question. But any other questions or comments from anyone else out there? We have a few. We have 8 devotees with us today. A small number. We have a hardcore team. Otherwise, we can go on to the next chapter. There's so much we can discuss, but yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next chapter. So chapter 24. Summery, Sadhana, and Sankalpa. I think it's only me and Mother Anupama who actually have the book today. So I guess I'll read. If someone does have the book and they'd like to read, you can please put your hand up. Okay. All right. So I get to read. Hare Krishna. Very nice. Chapter 24. Summery, Sadhana, and Sankalpa. Okay, part 5 of Sankalpa Kaumudi, Determinations in Sadhana, concludes with this current summary chapter. The main purpose of which is to emphasize that sadhana bhakti is best visualized as a stepwise process of spiritual development rather than one-step process to perfection. Indeed, the stage of perfection itself, prema, also has similar stepwise development that facilitates its unending growth. Yeah, since we've been studying this, something occurred to me that we come to Krishna consciousness, and by the grace of following the process of Krishna consciousness, we desire to get first initiation. And then after some time being steady, we become quite active in desiring. We may generally it's seen that we become quite desirous of taking second initiation for different reasons. One reason may be to chant the mantras and to worship the deities. Another reason may be just to move up the social scale in our international society for Krishna consciousness. But let's say, so anyway, so one desires to take second. And then it stops there. Then we stop desiring to, then we may stop. You understand? We may just be getting on with no particular determination to obtain different levels of bhakti. But we have to keep on desiring different levels of achievement in our absorption, in our spiritual attainment. You understand? And so you have to that. I mean, these other stages, in one sense, the stage of Diksha is very important. No doubt, but we have to keep on desiring. That's what Maharaj is. This whole presentation is about that. Keep on looking for the next stage of development in our Krishna consciousness. So
what should we study further, just as guidance? Like what's devotees could study? They study Srimad Bhagavatam, they study...
Yeah, study Srimad Bhagavatam. Everything's there in Prabhupada's books. But everything's there in Srila Prabhupada's books. And the more we read Srila Prabhupada's books, and the more we become knowledgeable of the process of Krishna consciousness, then we will recognize the different stages of attainment of the different devotees who are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and in the Nectar of Devotion as well. Nectar of Devotion especially, Rupa Goswami speaks about the different stages of Krishna consciousness. So it's all there. And then over and above that, we're studying Sankalpa Kaumudi, that's there as well. Sudha Bhakti Chintamani is another book which Maharaj speaks about the different levels of attainment. But primarily, this is all can be had from Srila Prabhupada's books. Yeah. Right. The aspect of sadhana in which a devotee rises from one step to the next is known as Sankalpa. Generally, books on sadhana bhakti elaborate on the symptoms and practices of each step, but say little on how to transit between those steps. As a result, devotees often inquire about the means to progressive advancement. To fulfill the need for such a book, there we go, answer your question here. We have composed Sankalpa Kaumudi, which emphasizes on what it means to move from one step to another. Upon deep contemplation, readers will conclude that the primeval impelling force of determination is the calling of the soul for love. And one impetus for love is dissatisfaction with the status quo, hence the need for spiritual progress. Yeah, many times that comes up, isn't it? Devotees ask the question, how can I advance? How can I make some progress? Yeah, that's a symptom, that's an impetus for love. So an impetus for love is dissatisfaction. Not the dissatisfaction of the materialist, but the dissatisfaction of devotee in wanting to come closer to Krishna, to develop this love. Yeah. We shall now explain this quest for love, which is implicit in Rupa Goswami's definition of sadhana bhakti. I've got this verse on my wall here in my ashram. I'll have to look at it again. That's the problem when you put things on a wall, they kind of disappear after a few months. So I have to revisit it again. Kriti Sadhya Bhavet Sadhya Bhava Sasadinadi Ba Nitya Siddhasya Syuktasya Prakritim Priti Satyata. So this is a definition of sadhana, okay, that Maharaj is giving now. A definition is when transcendental devotional service by which love for Krishna is attained, is executed by the senses, that's called Vaidhi Bhakti. Yep. It is called sadhana bhakti, or the discharge of devotional service. Such devotion eternally exists within the heart of every living entity. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of devotional service in practice. That's coming from Nectar Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion. Yeah. So it's already there. Just like the example given in the Nectar Devotion, just like a young child has the ability to actually walk. You have to just bring it out. Bring it out. It comes out of the child, the ability to walk on. Because it's there within, it will eventually come out. If you try and teach a dog to walk on two legs, good luck. It doesn't have the innate ability to actually do that. Yeah, but so this love for Krishna is there. So, unquote. Any questions, please raise your hand or ask. Yes. Okay, the constitution of the living entity is existence, knowledge and pleasure, Satchit and Ananda. The essence of Ananda, or the Haladini Shakti, is love, and the essence of love is spiritual emotion, bhava. This bhava is not to be confused with the stage of love by the same name. The pleasure potency, Haladini, has two aspects: pure love of Krishna and impure love that excludes Krishna. All right, I guess I'm trying to explain that if I understand it. So, yeah, there is different levels of prema. There's different stages to reach prema, and then prema has different levels of attainment as well. One of them is man, for instance. Can't recall now the other ones, but one of those is bhava. One of the levels of prema is actually bhava, but bhava is also used in a sense of the stage after sadhana. Yeah, sadhana, bhava, prema. Okay. The pleasure potency, Haladini, has two aspects: pure love of Krishna and impure love that excludes Krishna. Just read on to understand. I think that's referring to being of the material energy, because we forget that, and therefore we try to find love and completeness within the material realm. Yeah, it excludes Krishna. So just carry on reading. Although by nature the jiva is a lover of the Lord, being distracted by the material energy, he searches for happiness in the temporary creation. Yes, as I was saying. In excluding Krishna from his outlook, the bewildered jiva exchanges the bliss of real love for the unsatisfying happiness of impure love for family, country, and so on. And because that love is unconstitutional, the jiva tastes its essence, which is the emotion of unhappiness. Yeah. Again, this is nectar devotion. This is described. A chapala sukha. One's looking for temporary happiness, very flickering happiness. It's chapala sukha. Unhappiness is so much against the inherent makeup of the living entity that it ferments a constant sense of dissatisfaction within him. This dissatisfaction manifests within all the jiva's attainments and compels him to continually search for real happiness, real love, and real emotions. So he's searching for Krishna, in other words, but he doesn't know it. Kapila Deva explains that the materialist searches among the thorn bushes of economic development and sense gratification, and for a little enjoyment, he undergoes untold suffering. Then there's a quote here from, to check the where this is from. A few pages in this chapter. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 6.9.11. I just read the translation. Any questions or anything's not understood, please feel free to ask. Quote, the attached householder remains in his family life, which is full of diplomacy and politics, always spreading miseries and controlled by acts of sense gratification. He acts just to counteract the reactions of all his miseries. And if he can successfully counteract such miseries, he thinks that he is happy. Unquote. In time, even the most diehard materialist concludes that he has had a duty to the world, that he has a duty to the world around him. So he undertakes a variety of pious activities, learning to taste pleasure from giving along with taking. More advanced than the gross materialist is the pious soul who realizes his duty to the Creator is as imperative as his duty to the creation. And so he searches for happiness in religiosity. So Maharaj here is describing the yoga ladder here. Yeah. So now he's describing Kama Mishra Bhakti. More advanced still is the spiritualist who realizes that happiness is not found in this world. This is the Jnani, yeah? And so he wisely aspires for liberation, which is still not real happiness, but rather a suspension of distress. Out of many such Brahmavadis, barely a few are actually liberated, and those who are almost all abandon their attainment in dissatisfaction because they have not found what they are looking for. Unless they are blessed with the association of Vaishnavas, even the liberated remain ignorant of real happiness, which is the satisfaction, which is the satisfying shelter found under Krishna's lotus feet. Perhaps we'll ask, my voice is getting a bit weak here. Perhaps Mother Anupama, you'd like to read again?
Yes, I will. I can read.
Go ahead, Mother. Rupa Goswami quotes an unknown Vaishnava.
Okay. Rupa Goswami quotes an unknown Vaishnava poet who expresses amazement at the bewildering influence of the material energy over these jnanis. Even though they adopt burdensome spiritual disciplines, they remain as illusioned as their materialistic counterparts. Sorry, can I just put the phone away, please? I think it's probably distracting you. Can I just put it away? Sorry about that. Sorry about the noise. Sorry. Okay. Where was it? I'm sorry. Did I finish reading that little page? No. Haribol Prabhu, sorry. Am I reading from Yet a Truly Intelligent Soul? Yeah.
You are muted, Murli Prabhu.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, go from Rupa Goswami quotes again. Just read it.
Okay, sorry. Rupa Goswami quotes an unknown Vaishnava poet who expresses amazement at the bewildering influence of the material energy over these jnanis. Even though they adopt burdensome spiritual disciplines, they remain as illusioned as their materialistic counterparts. Many intelligent people thirst after impersonal liberation. Oh friend, when my heart considers their folly, it becomes struck with wonder. Yet a truly intelligent soul who continues to search after the real path to happiness comes to the conclusion, either through philosophical research or by meeting with Vaishnavas, that the abode and object of love is the supreme personality of Godhead. But among the devoted, most are satisfied to be believers and to worship from a distance, with only a few taking up the challenge of bhakti, become a sadhaka. Those who actually practice regulated devotion are exceptionally wise, for they have concluded that devotional service in practice, not lip service to Krishna, is the panacea for dissatisfaction with life and love. In that way, through sadhana bhakti, they begin to reawaken their dormant pure love for Krishna. As the cleansing process of sadhana, especially Nam Sankirtana, gradually reveals love by stages, two things happen. A devotee becomes increasingly satisfied with the process of sadhana and increasingly dissatisfied with his current attainment, the status quo. As a result, the sadhaka wants to move on to the next stage of bhakti and to the next stage and the next, on to bhav. This eagerness for dynamic progress is a sign of a healthy practitioner. In the way that a person becomes eager as he nears the completion of a prolonged assignment, or in the way that one becomes anxious upon sighting the end of an arduous journey, in his enthusiasm for ascetic devotion, a sadhaka becomes increasingly eager to progress from one stage of devotion to the next. Thus, we see that spiritual eagerness, anxiety, and enthusiasm are at the heart of Sankalpa. While instructing Uddhav, Krishna explains how the combination of satisfaction and dissatisfaction nourishes a devotee's Krishna consciousness. When a diseased eye is treated with medical ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see. Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he regains his ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form. The inability of a person to see impels him to apply a medication that will restore his vision. Similarly, a devotee's dissatisfaction with the suffering inflicted upon him by material nature inspires him to attain a state transcendental to the modes. In both cases, an unsatisfactory condition is the impetus for attaining satisfaction, and to the degree that dissatisfaction wanes, to that extent satisfaction waxes. At this point, we request the reader to note the following clarification. Although dissatisfaction with his conditioned state is a pure devotee's impetus for sankalpas, the reason for dissatisfaction is not because he wants to be liberated from misery. The reason is that service at the lower stage of bhakti are less suited to being offered to Krishna than are those at a higher stage. Moreover, in the ultimate issue, loving devotion is the only bhakti that is suited to Krishna's pleasure. Thus, a pure devotee does not understand Sankalpas to be relieved of suffering in the way of a jnani. He wants only what is best for the Lord. As already mentioned, one should not think that having attained prema, dissatisfaction with the existing condition or with the quest for love comes to an end. Indeed, the very nature of pure love is that it always strives to increase itself by itself. This is made possible through the agency of Krishna's pastimes, which are themselves manifestations of love between Krishna and his devotees. Thus, once again, we see in action the principle of bhakti, sanjeta bhaktaya, bhakti begets bhakti. In this case, prema bhakti begets more prema bhakti. In his dissertation on divine love called Prema Samputa, Vaishnava Chakravarti Thakur explains how love nurtures itself by itself. He writes, sorry, turning the next page. I think my pages are stuck. As a lion is nourished by defeating many elephants, similarly all-powerful love is nourished by defeating many troubles as great as Mount Summery, troubles that come from the two worlds, from one's kinsmen, from outsiders, from oneself, and even from the beloved, who is more dear than life itself.
Right, so let's just pause there. We've just got a couple of minutes left. I mean, this is so condensed. There's so much in here.
That's right. Yeah.
So much being said here. Any particular questions or any particular something that devotees took note of? That sort of interest? We've only got a few minutes left.
It says something there at Bhav, it comes from Bhav or it's multiplied from Bhav.
Yeah, where is that? Oh, well, you don't have the book, do you? Yeah, it's just to say that again.
At Bhav come from Bhav and it's multiplying.
Yeah, that's again, this is a summary of the last few chapters, and specifically Marge there, I think he's speaking about let's just find all the circular causality. Circular causality, so that devotion inspires more devotion. So let's just translate devotion as the emotional bhava. Yeah. So it creates more, and it just becomes more and more. So when one, for instance, one chants the holy name, and at some point one gets a taste for the holy name, so it becomes more deeper. So that just inspires one to apply oneself even more to chanting the holy name. Now, because one applies oneself more, one gets more of a result. Yeah. And then ad infinitum, it just continues. Yeah, never ending. That's why in the spiritual world, it's often described that Krishna is always increasing in his affection and love for the residents of Vrindavan, and vice versa. So the same principle is also experienced in the stage of practice. This is spiritual life. So yeah, so what you heard there, I think it was referring to that causality, causeless causality. Yeah. But I thought myself, I was thinking this nicely described about this dissatisfaction here. In both cases, an unsatisfactory condition is the impetus for attaining satisfaction. And to the degree that dissatisfaction wanes, to that extent, satisfaction waxes. Let me read that again. The impetus for attaining satisfaction, in both cases, let me just go to the beginning of this paragraph. The inability of a person to see impels him to apply a medication that will restore his vision. Similarly, a devotee's dissatisfaction with the suffering inflicted upon him by material nature inspires him to attain a state beyond transcendental to the modes. So that dissatisfaction is needed. Yeah. If one is not feeling dissatisfied with the material world, then there's a problem. In both cases, an unsatisfactory condition is the impetus for attaining satisfaction, for attaining Krishna consciousness. So much is in here. I guess we'll have to pause there, and well, at least we'll be paused at this section for a couple of weeks until we get settled in Mayapur after the teaching. So, so please bear with us, please be patient with us, and we'll try and get back to this reading as soon as we can. We'll be in touch about that. Any final questions or comments? Okay, then.
It's supposed to be 2 hours at least.
Sorry, was that?
Is it all right if I leave a little package for Niranjana Swami in the kitchen for you tomorrow?
Yeah, which kitchen?
The Pujari kitchen.
Yeah, fine. You just put my name on it, yeah?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us for this reading. It's quite in depth, quite a lot here that was reading. Every sentence is so much, so sometimes difficult to really give it enough justice just by reading it. But anyway, we did our best, try to understand what we could. Thank you for joining us. And tomorrow we have our Bhagavad Gita, so please join us for that. Continuing chapter 2. if you can. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you,
Jai.
Prabhu,
Jai
so much.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Hare Krishna.
And everyone, end meeting for all. Hare Krishna.